Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Damn You Hollywood. I'm Robert Winfree, here with me as almost always, 95% of the time, Mark Radulich. How you doing, Mark?
Hello, sir. Glad to be with you again. We're actually going to be doing a show, I think, 2 weeks in a row here before we take another hiatus. I rather enjoy that. We short breaks here and there I think are good for the show, but I don't like to go too long without checking in on you. I need to make sure you're okay at all times.
I don't pay you for that. You're not my therapist.
Texas, we just had the worst hurricane in recorded history. Florida, hold my beer. God, ain't that the truth? I'm really hoping this hurricane. Which, by the way, I almost quit my job today because I got an email saying that all the full-time staff have to show up Saturday, and we are supposed to prepare to be held hostage in the jail until for 7 days. Now, the hurricane's projected to possibly hit Florida on Saturday and Sunday into Monday. But, hurricanes hit and then they're gone. And, again, I work in a jail. I work in a large building. It's not likely, though I was told today that the building does flood, so I don't know. But the point that I'm getting to, I can't imagine I won't be able to go home for 7 days, because if that's the case, they may have to Baker Act me. I'm prepared to spend a couple of days there, 2, 3 at the most. But beyond that, if you're going to hear about me on the news as a large man tries to escape,
you would complete your transformation into Florida man. It's okay.
Yeah, I would be. There'd be a man throwing off his scrubs, running in his underwear and a thermal shirt, running screaming from the Hillsborough County Jail.
And that would still not be the weirdest thing seen in your state over that particular 6-hour period.
Not by far. Florida Man's a very fun Twitter account, by the way. I haven't looked at it in a while, but there's usually something very fun happening on that Twitter account.
Yeah. All right, for those of you who don't want to hear Mark and I shoot the breeze, there's a reason we're doing that. Tonight we are talking about Marvel's Inhumans. And, Mark, your sarcasm doesn't translate.
Says you.
Yeah, you could be legitimately excited about this.
I could. I could.
I mean, you're excited about Geostorm. The
I
bar
really
is
am.
rather low.
I really am. I saw a preview for Geostorm before Inhumans, and it was the best thing about my trip to the movies that night.
I'd already seen that particular preview, and it just, again, reaffirmed everything I knew that was going to suck about that movie. It's not going to be good. All right. So the point here is, I'll go ahead and spoil elements of this. This thing sucked. Mark and I are actually in agreement. Okay, Mark, I don't know. Maybe you can educate me here. I know that when they first announced the Inhumans were becoming a thing, it was originally planned to be a movie. There were talks about, I think, Vin Diesel as Black Bolt, which would have been fine. Vin is a very capable facial actor. I don't think he gets enough credit for it. And it was going to be a movie. It was going to be one of the things that kind of ushered in the Infinity War. When did that change? Who thought this was a good idea? And why, for the love of all that's holy, did you insist that I see this?
The film was removed from the Marvel Studios slate in April of 2016, and the Inhuman series was announced the following November. And it was partly filmed in IMAX. Woo! Anyway, as to who thought this was a good idea, clearly Marvel did. I think they haven't shut the door on doing a doing an Inhumans movie, but I think they looked at, and right now I'm just taking some wild guesses, but they were supposed to be, I would imagine that Marvel is contracted to produce X amount of TV for ABC. They've already given a fair number of characters over to Netflix, and they're giving more to Netflix as we speak with The Punisher getting his own series. So I think with whatever contractual obligations they have to ABC to create content, ABC had opted not to renew Agent Carter, and there was supposed to be a spin-off from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. called Marvel's Most Wanted, featuring Mockingbird. And they filmed the pilot, and ABC saw the pilot and decided, no, we're going to pass on this. And so I think...
Meanwhile, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. keeps sucking up airspace.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gets decent ratings. It helped that they introduced the Ghost Rider, even the Robbie Reyes version of Ghost Rider. In any case, I don't want to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think with the desire to produce some new TV for ABC, they looked at what they had, and they thought, well, let's take the Inhumans off the movie slate and let's make a TV show out of it and tell this story, which is partially based on the 12-issue limited series by, I think it was Jai Lee is the writer's name. You can hear all about it on source material from last night. That's already in the archives. We talked about it. I haven't heard the final cut of it because we recorded it last week and it went up yesterday. But so I don't know how much of this is true and how much of it isn't. I will tell you that I took medication before that podcast, and by the end of it, I was pretty drunk. I was definitely saying things that made no sense. So that's fun. You go check that out. In any case, why did I make you go see this? Well, I mean, we go see all the comic book movies that are out there. So I figured, this was an event for Marvel and for IMAX. And I don't think it should be skipped. I think it's something that should be paid attention to. Now, I wasn't expecting it to suck. I wasn't expecting it to be boring, but that's what we're going to talk about. Because there were some problems with this show, but it's got 6 more episodes to correct itself. So maybe, look, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. started off badly, and it found its groove, and it found an identity, and it's better than it has any right to be. Certainly, the Arrowverse shows are all, pretty good.
You're talking to the wrong audience to try and sell me on those.
I ain't talking to you.
They're not.
Some are better than others.
There's only two.
No, I think
one of them sucks out loud. The other one sucks mildly.
Oh, stop it. But I think, look, there's a reason I'm kind of a TV snob, and I'm resistant to a lot of what's out there because I don't find a lot of television writing to be particularly good. I think there are some great shows.
Especially network television. It's awful.
Yeah, I find the cable shows, whether it's subscription cable or regular cable, your FX shows, or your HBO shows or Showtime. I think those tend to be better than not, but a lot of network shows I don't find the writing to be particularly good. I think it's almost written for like the lowest common denominator. But occasionally, shows that don't start particularly strong develop an identity and an audience over time. So there's hope for Inhumans yet, but it did not start strong, not by a long shot.
When you speak of hope in the general context, and I'll freely acknowledge that, okay, maybe this thing does all right on television, but yeah, this. Oy. All right. Where do we start?
Plot.
We are introduced to the concept of Inhumans. Now, if you actually watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the majority of people don't, but if you do, you're aware of the Terrigenesis outbreak that has occurred through that particular show. Well, Terrigen crystals and that whole process are what gave rise to the Inhumans, a race of genetically perfect people with abilities, and they got fed up with Earth long time ago and took their city to the moon, where it has existed ever since, safe, secure, and existing within a rigid caste system where the abilities you get after you undergo Terrigenesis, like in the early teens, determine your usefulness. And you could be very useful and wind up, with a good paying job and something to do in society, or you could wind up scratching out an existence in their system of tunnels, where they, I believe, mine Terrigen crystals, but that's me assuming. They never actually explain why the lowest end of the caste system exists as basically troglodytes.
I think they're mining to create space for the citizens to live. Maximus makes a point of saying at some point in the show that they are running out of space for their citizens to live, which is part of why he keeps saying they should go to Earth. He's like, if we didn't live on the moon in this bubble, they don't even make use of the whole moon. Their whole city is in this one bubble that's keeping them hidden from the rest of humanity. And I think they're mining lower into the into the moon to create space for more people to live, which he is against.
Okay. Again, they never they set up, okay, we have a caste system, and we as Americans have been brought up to believe that is wrong. So therefore, their attempts to add like diverse characters or situation, or giving these people any depth is just bad. It just doesn't work. They execute so badly. Anyway, the Inhumans live on the moon. There's a few of them that are on Earth looking to round up the proper Inhumans that have popped up on Earth because, well, when they left, not everybody wanted to leave, and some of them stayed, and now their genetic material is diffused throughout the human population. And again, some of them, and and this is all winds up being in a moderately important backdrop. The main characters that we're going to be dealing with are Black Bolt, played by Anson Mount, who is king of the Inhumans, and can't speak. Well, he can, he chooses not to. If you know anything about the character, his ability exponentially magnifies anything that vibrates through his vocal cords into devastation. I believe the line used about him is he could level an entire city just by whispering at it. He's an extraordinarily powerful individual. And his wife, Medusa, who, she's kind of there. She has hair. I guess is kind of like the total of her character. The main antagonist is Bolt's brother, a fellow by the name of Maximus, who has no ability and doesn't like his people living on the moon anymore. He wants to go back to Earth where there is space and resources and unicorns and everything will be fine. I don't know. But he doesn't like it. He wants to be king because, everybody wants to be king, right? Because suddenly Zemo, I guess. Anyway, he uses the backdrop of a couple of members of the royal family being sent to Earth in order to kind of deal with the crisis there as an opportune moment to stage a coup where he violently takes over. Bolt, his wife, their two cousins, Gorgon and who's the other guy? Karnak, thank you. Should tell you how much they actually mention the character. I don't remember his name. They all wind up on Hawaii because the shooting team wanted a vacation. I don't know. That's literally the only thing I can think of. Like the people shooting this, let's have a vacation. We'll shoot, 8 episodes. Let's just go to Hawaii. Everyone can have a good time.
All right. In the plot, though, it starts with Triton trying to find let me go back a step. In one of the seasons of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Terrigenesis is thrown into the sea. It's mixed with I forget what supplement. It's like fish oil or something like that. It's for cholesterol. Not much I remember. In any case, people start taking the supplement. They get exposed to Terrigenesis. It either kills them or it gives them powers, and people start freaking out. There was a whole season sort of dedicated to trying to find some of these people and bring them into S.H.I.E.L.D. This coincided with Civil War and the what was the doctrine called again?
Sokovia Accords.
The Sokovia Accords, yeah.
Yeah, you notice how Tony Stark didn't give Spider-Man any shit about not signing those or actually becoming an official hero? Just saying. Yes,
I did notice that. A little inconsistent there, Marvel. In any case, S.H.I.E.L.D. made it a point to incorporate the Sokovia Accords into their plotline. In any case, so what we have are people who are suddenly developing powers throughout the world, and Triton comes down to Earth to catch up with one of these folks, and she's being hunted, and he ends up being hunted along with her. They both are shot. He ends up diving into, and this is why, and she's in Hawaii at the time. So this is why the royal family gets transported to Hawaii amidst Maximus's coup. You may continue.
I maintain there was no setting. When they decided to shoot it, everyone said, let's go to Hawaii. It'll be fun.
In defense of the Hawaii decision, how often does stuff get shot in Hawaii? Everything is like in New York or LA or Chicago.
It's not a joke.
So it's like one show. It's like one show.
There's a reason nothing gets shot in Hawaii. It's freaking expensive.
I think they were just looking for a different setting. So many of these shows are take place in the same series of cities. To a lesser degree, New Orleans. Why not shoot the show in Hawaii? There's nothing wrong with it.
They just wanted a vacation. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And good for them for finding a way to basically get paid to do it. Anyway, the royal family gets transported to various places throughout Hawaii because they are transported via Lockjaw, the giant teleporting dog. And being a dog, his sense of interdimensional direction via transporting is not perfect. They all wind up in different places. One of them gets left behind. The dog gets put into a perpetual coma. Maximus he is trying to solidify his reign, but with the actual royal family still in existence, and at any point they could show back up and threaten that, and then he's got no powers, so he could just die horribly, which he probably will. No, I'm sorry, I correct myself. This is network television. No one dies. One of them, Gorgon, winds up on the beach with a bunch of surfers because it's Hawaii. Karnak winds up suffering a concussion, and his ability to... I don't know what it is exactly he does. I think he manipulates probability, or he is able to... It's never made exactly clear what he does.
All right, so Karnak sees the fault. Karnak sees the fault in all things, avoiding errors, and acts as the royal family strategist and philosopher.
And yet somehow he managed to step on a piece of rock that couldn't support a fourth of his weight. So good job.
In the comic, it's portrayed a little bit differently. Here, it's interesting how they show his powers. But yeah, he sees the fault in all things. That's his power.
Fair enough. And he, again, winds up concussed, and his powers stops working, and he freaks out. Black Bolt arrives in the middle of the street, and being a stranger in a strange land, winds up stealing and gets arrested by the end of it. Medusa winds up in the middle of the Diamond Head crater. She gets attacked near the end by the sent assassin of Maximus. She stabs said assassin, leaves her believing she's dead, but again, network television, no one actually dies. Not just network television. Like, we're dealing with, like, network comic book television. No one's going to die, ever. It just removes any sense of stakes or anything. I mean, honestly, if Bill Paxton hadn't actually died, they're about at the point in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where they would reintroduce his character. Anyway, this sets up for the rest of the season where we will get some comedy, some action, and at the end, Anson Mount will reclaim the throne. They will imprison his brother, or he will be transported somewhere else. Nothing will actually change. And no one will really care. All right. What do you want to talk about first, Mark? Do we want to start with the positive? Because I've got one thing. I have exactly one.
I think as far as... Let me give my rundown here. The show moves very, very slowly, and then suddenly there's a coup that comes out of nowhere. It's very weird the way that it's done. Like, there's no build-up to it. If you didn't know that Maximus was going to turn on his brother and be the villain of this thing, you wouldn't have seen... When he does it, it really does just come from out of nowhere. There's no build-up to it. There's nothing that indicates that they're going in that direction, which might sound like, oh, well, do you want them to give everything away? No, but this isn't done very well, is my point. It's not... The coup and the subsequent overthrow is not set up. It just comes out of left field. The performances rank from terrible to meh, with the exception of Black Bolt. Anson Mount does a very good job of portraying this character. I just wish he had something to do other than get himself, like... There's one scene
run afoul of the law.
There's one scene where he's, like, fighting the Honolulu police, and it's a pretty good scene, and then after that, he's just going through the humdrum process of being processed, as you will, in jail. They take him to jail, and he's like getting his fingerprints and everything. And even that, it was like they could have had some fun with it. Like he's never been in a Honolulu jail before, or any jail for that matter, any Earth jail. So it would have. So there was some stranger in a strange land, fish out of water stuff they could have done in that scene, and they just sort of made it meh. Serinda Swan as Medusa is fine, and before anyone asks about it, the shaving of her head, and I'm making an issue out of this because somebody in the theater actually was like, the biggest part of Medusa's character is her hair, and they shave it off. Like, yeah, that comes directly from the comic that this was based on. So, and I can also see the reason for doing it in the sense that it gives her a hurdle to overcome. Yes, part of watching a comic book show or comic book movie is you want to see them use their powers, but this has her like building back up to it again, so I can dig it. The guy playing Karnak is fine. The guy playing Gorgon, Eme Ikwuakor, I don't know how to pronounce that, is almost terrible. Every time he read his dialogue, it was almost as if English was not his first language. But by far, the worst performance of this entire thing is Isabelle Cornish, who looked like she'd never been in anything else before. This was like her first acting gig, and prior to this, she worked in a deli or something. Literally, the old crisscross. Some producer's walking through a mall and sees these two asshole kids and goes, "Hey, I think I can make money off of you two. You want to become rappers?" I feel like somebody walked in, saw her working at Walmart or something, and was like, "You look pretty enough to be in pictures, gal. How would you like to be in the Inhumans show?" And the guy playing Maximus is fine when they give him stuff to do. As far as the look, one of the complaints I read about the show was how bland Attilan looks. Attilan, I keep pronouncing it wrong. How bland and unremarkable Attilan is, and they're right. There was a joke about the entire special effects budget clearly going to Lockjaw and nothing else, and
yeah, I
could believe that. Okay, I heard somewhere else too.
What? God, I thought it was being original.
But yeah, it looks like the whole thing was just shot in a warehouse. Like Attilan, had this been, think about Asgard. Asgard looks otherworldly. Asgard looks like a lived-in magical fantasy city. Attilan should have had the same care and respect put into it, and it wasn't. It just looks like I said, it looks like they just shot it in a warehouse.
Looks like a leftover set from the Hunger Games. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, there's no originality or creativity put into it. Just kind of sucks. So, what did I think of it overall? I was bored. I walked out at one point to go to the bathroom and to keep myself awake. And the best parts of it really revolved around Black Bolt, but there wasn't enough Black Bolt to save this thing, believe it or not. So much of this is spent on the other characters, and normally that would be a good thing in an ensemble cast, but nobody is strong enough to hold their own in any one scene. And what they're doing isn't interesting. Karnak has one interesting fight scene, which is kind of fun, and then the rest of the time he's walking in a circle in Hawaii. Gorgon has a conversation with a bunch of surfers. That's pretty much all he gets to do. And Maximus talks a lot and walks around looking,
douchey,
looking evil, I guess.
He doesn't look evil.
The one
this killed me about this. I mean, look, you and I have
Menacing.
talked.
That was the word I was looking for. He walks around looking menacing.
He doesn't look menacing. He doesn't look menacing.
The one character that actually gets to do some fun stuff is Auron, who is his henchman that ends up becoming the new head of the Royal Guard. You know, she's kind of fun, but again, everything is kind of weak, and they didn't move it along fast enough to keep my interest, and I'm not the only one that felt that way. Go ahead and I'm sorry, the comic book. By the way, the Inhuman series that this was somewhat based on was written by Paul Jenkins. I had the names messed up before. All right, I got to go see what my son wants. Go ahead and give your quick review, and I'll be right back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
All right. I'm not entirely sure how this managed to be as supremely boring as it was with the runtime of only 75 minutes.
What, Joe? What do you want?
I mean, I get that this is a 2-part like network television thing, and there's supposed to be, commercials, and again, it is paced and scheduled for TV, but it's just boring. It really, really is. The only really noteworthy performance comes from Anson Mount. But, like Mark alluded to, they just don't give him anything to do. And I mentioned, and this will actually dovetail into something else, I think.
Yeah.
I mentioned when talking about the X-Men movies, the original trilogy specifically, Cyclops gets the real short end of the stick, partially because the actor can't act around the visor, and more importantly because the writers don't quite know how, and the directors, and there was no fundamental understanding of what an actor and a character could bring to the film if they fall outside of what people understand to be the normal parameters. In the instance of Cyclops, it's, well, we can't see half his face, so how in the world is he going to emote or contribute? And instead, we'll just make him the biggest stick in the mud ever. In the case of Black Bolt, it's more, well, this guy can't talk, and we can't use speech bubbles, so what are we going to do? Well, we'll minimize his screen time. And it's sad, and it's stupid, and it's backwards, but that seems to be the world that is currently being inhabited by all of us. Again, he does a good job as far as that goes. Everyone, I agree with Mark's assessment of the acting quality. It's generally not all that good.
I'm back, by the way. And it turns out I was right. I want to quick read this to you. In May 2016, after ABC had canceled Marvel's Agent Carter and passed on Marvel's Most Wanted, ABC Entertainment president Channing Dungey said that Marvel and ABC were looking at a series that would be beneficial to both brands moving forward. I figured that out without even reading that before. Aren't I smart?
Yeah. And ants go towards sugar water.
You're mean.
I don't mean that as an insult to you. I mean that as an insult to the pedantic, overutilized, overly predictable sadness that is network television studio thinking.
All right, moving on.
This doesn't look good. It's boring. It's only 75 minutes, and it's still boring. I want to yell at them about just how badly executed this is. Mark and I have talked at length about how there's only so many stories you can tell. And the story of the passed over younger brother looking to claim the throne that's as old as civilization. As long as we have organized ourselves and told stories, that one's been in the repertoire. But it's done so badly. I mean, Maximus just, again, he's not menacing. He's not a threat. He's not even interesting. and yet he is kind of the one we're supposed to look at. I think what is supposed to make him interesting in theory is that he kind of is meant to have a point. Like, our society can't sustain itself much longer under these current circumstances. We are repressing our people. We are dealing with extraordinarily limited resources and space. And there's this planet that we used to be on, and there's space. We could do stuff. There's all this area we could inhabit. Why, for the love of all that's holy, are we still dicking around here? And why are we perpetuating, essentially, again, slave labor? And that's supposed to be a somewhat valid moral perspective opposite of Black Bolt, who is much more kind of in favor of keeping the system, who doesn't want to do anything too out of the ordinary, who is very, very protective of his people and what they represent, and doesn't want to put them in harm's way by transporting them onto Earth in the middle of all the crap that's going on Earth.
I was going to say, Black Bolt kind of has a point. You know,
yeah.
You're in a situation. You're in a situation now where you will be imprisoned, you know, in a jail underneath the ocean if you don't sign up with S.H.I.E.L.D. If you have powers. And he's like, well, our entire society has powers except for those that don't. And we shouldn't all have to be forced to go work for the American government. So, you know, like, I get it. You know, I get where Black Bolt's coming from, where it's like, you know, it's better to not live on the planet with humans.
Had they actually had that debate on screen, would have been interesting.
Right.
Instead, no. None of that gets brought up. It's all just a backdrop as far as Maximus trying to play for power. There's so much missed opportunity in so much of this. Until you remember that you're dealing with network television, where every series ever follows one of two life cycles. One, it dies within 2 seasons because it either sucks out loud or can't find an audience, and those two are not at all exclusive. Two Broke Girls went on forever. And believe me, that sucked. Hell, The Big Bang Theory is still going on. Or they find an audience, regardless of quality, and it gets milked and driven into the ground for 7 or 8 seasons, which is about 3 to 4 past its actual peak in terms of entertainment and creativity. And when you look at when you look at the fact that every single one of their series follows that life cycle, it's not television, it's the people running it that have perpetuated a system that has allowed us to arrive at this spot. Nobody dies, so nothing has weight.
Do you know they're doing a spin-off of The Big Bang Theory that's supposed to be about Sheldon when he was a child?
Find whoever thinks this is a good idea and shoot them in the head.
Friends had a spin-off. It was called Joey. I think that lasted for a season.
2. I believe it got 2.
Oh, it got 2. And that lasted more than 1 season, huh? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, this is how creatively bankrupt network television is. They're reviving Will and Grace.
Yep. Not even on, and it's not even like on an exclusive streaming network, like, you know, it's like a Hulu exclusive or a Netflix exclusive. No, that's going right back on NBC proper.
I mean, Fox is giving Seth MacFarlane whatever he wants to do because they're desperate to fill airtime, no matter how terrible it is. They're talking about bringing back King of the Hill, I seem to recall.
Yes.
I mean, everyone involved. My
wife is very excited about this.
Everyone involved in this process at the executive level has fundamentally failed for so long that in a desperate bid to remain quasi-relevant in the face of increased streaming and other networks actually letting people be artists, that they're now trying to revive stuff that's been off the air for 4 or 5 years that people used to like. It's sad and pathetic. It really is. And this is nothing more than another entry into that sad, sad lineage.
Are you done with this rant? Because we still have 2 more segments to do.
Let me think. Special effects we talked about. Anson Mount not sucking out loud and actually being pretty good. Everyone else, budget, story, errors in execution. Boring despite a really short runtime. I think that's everything for me. If something else comes up, I'll remember it. But yeah, all right, let's... I don't even know how we're going to approach the money with this because, I mean, they're paying to be in IMAX. This isn't free.
Well,
but it's a net...
Here's how we're going to do it.
Hit the money.
Here we go. Money talk. Here comes the money. Dollar.
All right. So as Robert was saying, this is a television event. This wasn't meant to produce millions and millions of dollars. So how did it do? Domestically, it grossed $15 million. $1,500,000. In foreign theaters, it grossed $1,100,000 for a grand total worldwide of $2,600,000. I couldn't tell you where that ranks among other events such as this. I couldn't even tell you where it ranks against like The Killing Joke or Batman and Harley or any one of these recent The Return of the Caped Crusader. These are all straight-to-video DC animated movies that were also in theaters for a brief run, like a couple of days. So I know the theater I saw it in, and I saw like a 7 o'clock showing on the Friday night that it came out, September 1st. I was one of like 6 people in the theater. So, that's really all that needs to be said about this. Again, this wasn't meant to be competitive with the summer blockbusters or anything like that. It was meant to gain attention. It was a marketing event for the series, for IMAX, for ABC Studios, etc. And I mean, as far as marketing goes, I know the theater that I went to had a big display featuring the Inhumans. So I mean, it got the word out. Whether or not we'll see how the real test will be how well the ratings do. That's what it's all about. But since we're here, we just did our year-end show not that long ago. But let's go ahead and see how we're doing worldwide. Beauty and the Beast still number 1.
For the record, hang on, just for the record, the last 3 weeks of movies have sucked.
Yeah, well, that's why we haven't reviewed any.
Bodyguard is still topping box office returns in third week, and it's down to almost single-digit returns. That's how bad the box office has been over the last month.
So the top 10 remains mostly unchanged. This Wolf Warrior has cracked the top 5, knocking Wonder Woman to 6th position on the worldwide grosses. The top 4 remain unchanged. It's still Beauty and the Beast, Fate of the Furious, Despicable Me, and Guardians of the Galaxy. Despicable Me is $3 million away from cracking $1 billion. $3 measly million. Good for Illumination Studios.
Yeah,
Pirates is still number 7. It's almost cracked 800 million. Spider-Man settled in at around 750 million. Logan is number 9, and Transformers actually cracked 600 million. So good for Transformers. And rounding out the top 20, you've got Kong, Boss Baby, Dunkirk, The Mummy, 50 Shades, Stalker, War for the Planet of the Apes, some foreign film called Your Name, The Return of Xander Cage, Cars 3, and The Great Wall. So that's the money. That's all I got to say about that. So, you ready to do this?
There it is.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So, with only, I believe, 10 reviews or so, all for this event, the current Rotten Tomatoes score, and remember, Rotten Tomatoes is a collection of scores. It's not, no one from Rotten Tomatoes is actually reviewing anything. It's reviews from all over the world, collected into one area and give it an aggregate number. 0%. Nobody liked this thing that reviewed it. Scott Pierce from the Salt Lake Tribune. From what TV critics have seen, Inhumans is awful. Well, you ain't just whistling Dixie, bub. Graham Virtue of Guardian. It does all seem faintly ridiculous. The interiors of Adelan look bland, bare, and brutalistic, while the costuming and production design managed neither grandeur or grit. Top critic Brian Lowry of CNN.com says, previewing of the first hour found little material of a scope that demands to be seen on an IMAX screen. Inhumans' fidelity to the comics could also make it a tough sell beyond the loyal core. Oh, I think that remains to be seen.
Hang on. Can we... Sorry, remind me after you get done with this. We really do need to talk about why the Inhumans are a thing as far as this goes.
Sure. Josh Bell of Las Vegas Weekly. At best, Inhumans resembles a mediocre 90s syndicated genre series, and blowing it up to IMAX size just puts a bigger spotlight on the flaws. Yeah, I got a Xena Warrior Princess feel from this, too. You know, or something that's like on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
Don Kay of Den of Geek. Inhumans already feels like a missed opportunity and an odd outcast in the larger Marvel canon. You know, they don't have a lot of misses, but they do essentially whiff the ball. Matt Webb Minovich of TV Line. Despite the big launch, little to marvel at. Go on, what were you going to say?
Oh, are you proud of yourself? Really? You proud of yourself for writing that sentence?
Siddhant Adlaka of birth.movies.death. Nothing works in terms of character or story, and the design elements are complete disasters are fine, I guess. Lockjaw is fine. Yeah, I thought they completely misused Lockjaw. I mean, granted, he's a teleporting dog, but Lockjaw also isn't really a dog. Lockjaw is an Inhuman who got turned into a teleporting dog.
Yeah. Which is cool, which is actually like really cool that he's got a human-level intelligence, but is stuck as a dog. Right.
And again, instead of kind of going with that, they're just like, we'll just make it a dog that teleports. And so half of the Inhuman show is Lockjaw now, Lockjaw, take him away.
And then come right back, and then him putting them in the wrong spot, and them going, stupid dog.
Kevin Yeoman of Screen Rant. Every brand has its limits, and this uninspired take on the Inhumans might be Marvel's. Yeah, I would agree. If I had to come up with one word other than boring to describe this, I would be uninspired. It doesn't look like they took a lot of time and effort in terms of like set design and whatnot to really make this stand out. It's something like it comes across like a bad sci-fi show, sci-fi network show. Morgan Jeffrey of Digital Spy says, for Marvel completists only, Inhumans is, as many anticipated, the weakest entry into the MCU to date across big screens and across screens big and small. And finally, Joshua Yell of IGN Movies. Inhumans is bad from top to bottom. Try as it might, the show does not live up to the Marvel brand. It is most definitely not worth seeing in IMAX. And I wouldn't recommend catching it on TV either. Well,
yeah.
now,
I mean, I almost want
normal.
I almost want to bill you. You know this, right? Like, I am so tempted to send you an invoice for the money I spent on like watching bad television on an IMAX screen.
It had to be done, sir. It had to be done.
It really didn't.
Well, you get to get me back in a few days, as I will venture to the movies and watch It, and then I have to watch the original It, Double Trouble. So you get payback, and then I'm gonna have to watch Jigsaw at the end of October. So
all you did was express me for a month. You're claiming like this is my grand revenge for the year you've given me. That barely covers like June.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you went away there for a moment.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Again, by the time the year wraps up, you will have seen enough material to make you uncomfortable and unhappy as I had to process over June.
Quit your bitching. You know you love it.
I really don't.
So as I said, we've got.
Hang on. Before we get into
next.
the schedule.
Okay.
The thing I want to touch on here. The reason that we're going with Inhumans, I feel, is because Marvel doesn't have access to the X-Men.
Yeah, that's about right. They've really taken the place of the X-Men with with the allegories and like racism and whatnot.
Yeah, they just don't have the X-Men, so they're trying to shoehorn the Inhumans into the same space, and it doesn't really work. And certainly not, it doesn't work in the hands of the people that they have left it in.
Yeah, I don't know if it doesn't work necessarily, because I think it works just fine on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the way that they've done it. I think it remains to be seen whether or not I think it remains to be. If no one watched it, it would have been canceled, Robert.
You think that, and yet.
Do I need to pull up the wiki and actually read you the ratings? Do I?
If the ratings from the last season have been over a 3, I will not bring it up again.
All right, here we go. God damn it. I was trying so hard to end this podcast on time.
So don't look, and let me keep going on with it from time to time. It's entirely up to you.
Nope. List of Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes. Okay, here we go.
If the average is over a 3.0 for the whole season, I won't bring it up again.
Average viewers, 4.22 in millions, including DVR.
No, that's not a rating. That's number of millions of viewers. I want the actual rating.
Apparently this was split up into 3 parts. There was the Ghost Rider part, the LMD part, and the Agents of Hydra part. Well, that makes sense. So in 22 episodes, you wanted to know if any of them went over a 3, or what the average was?
Average. The average over all 3/3 is over a 3. I will not bring it up again.
I don't see how it could be. Only the debut, The Ghost, was over a 3. It was 3.44. Everything else is between a 2.00 and a 2.95.
Then they're lucky it's still on the air. And it's probably there more as a function of, well, we want to keep Marvel on the air. Many, many television series have been canceled with better ratings than that.
Yeah, I guess ABC, and then Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was renewed. So it's still on the air.
Yeah. Despite almost no one watching.
I wouldn't say that's almost no one. 2 is still decent.
That's on par with Raw, right? And doesn't have nearly the... I don't know. That's a whole other thing.
All right. In any case, now that we've established that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a thing, people watch it.
Very
I
few
watched
people
it.
watch it.
I watched it on Hulu. Does that count?
No.
Um,
Doesn't factor into the ratings data. For the purposes of this, it doesn't count. Until Hulu releases the number of people that watch it on that platform, doesn't count.
All right. Next week on Damn You Hollywood, Stephen King's It. And then we'll be taking a break. We'll do some TV parties. We'll have Jesse on. We'll have Pat on. By the way, for those that are wondering what happened to Game of Thrones Season 1, Pat didn't have time to rewatch it, and we scheduled it for his birthday, which I don't understand how that happened, but it did. So what you going to do? In any case, I have finished Seasons 1 and 2 of Game of Thrones. I think what I'm going to do is when I have watched everything through Season 7, I might just do my own solo podcast and sort of give my overall opinion of Game of Thrones in its totality. I know, with the exception of the very final season.
Here's how it goes. Everyone dies.
They really do. What do you call it? On October 3rd.
The North is going to win, and everyone's going to wind up becoming the undead roaming the frigid lands of that. I don't know. I don't watch the show, but.
You're babbling is what you're doing. But speaking of babble, Robert Winfree will be joining me for a TV party on October 3rd as we look at Hannibal Season 1. I know you're very excited about that. And then we're back.
Show.
October 10th, if you're not watching Legends of Tomorrow or The Flash, you can tune in and listen to us talk about Blade Runner 2049. The following week, we'll be back for the second half of the Voltron series or Voltron Season 4, however you like it. I'll be myself, Mr. Winfree, and Mr. Koopa, Paratroopa. And then we're back to discuss the aforementioned Geostorm on October 24th. And finally, on Halloween, would you believe it, we're going to talk Jigsaw. Yuck.
Hey, I don't expect it to be good. I don't even expect to like it, in all honesty.
Why are you making me see it?
It fits the criteria, doesn't it?
No, it's a horror film.
That's not an excluding criteria. It's a theoretically major
release. It is for
release.
me, sister.
It's a major release into a tentpole franchise.
Well, we're not doing the Kingsman in that, and that meets the criteria.
No, we're not, and I'm very glad.
Because I didn't see the first one, and I have no desire to see any of these movies. So,
neither did I. That's why when we agree on that, then we can skip it. But again, the Saw series peaked with 3. I mean, it peaked with 1, but there's like nothing of value after Saw 3. And I like horror movies.
Can't wait. Okay. So with all that being said, I think that's the end of my plugs. Tune in tomorrow for Metal Hammer of Doom. It's we're going to look at the new Quiet Riot, Road Rage, as part of we split the weekend.
Quiet Riot?
Yes, there's a new Quiet Riot.
I
split the week in two in terms of themes. Half the week was dedicated to the Inhumans. The other half is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So, part 2. So we're going to look at Quiet Riot. And then Thursday, assuming Pat rewatched it, we're going to look at Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll Season 2. All right, go ahead and do your plugs.
Why would you watch that much Dennis Leary? Like, voluntarily?
I watched a lot of it at work today.
Well, you do work in a prison. Were you monitoring, like, aversion therapy?
No, I was bored out of my fucking mind and needed something to do.
You can do better. All right. As for me, the 411 Ground and Pound radio show on Sundays. This last week, we looked back at UFC Fight Night 115, which was an event that almost nobody saw because it was only on Fight Pass. And we looked ahead to UFC 215, which almost no one will see because they all spent their money on Mayweather-McGregor. Seriously, the buy rate for UFC 215, if that cracks 250,000 buys, they should be turning cartwheels. I mean, it's after a $100 event, and you have Mighty Mouse in the main event. And I love Demetrius Johnson, but the man doesn't draw. This is documented. And then the co-main event is Amanda Nunes, who the UFC dumped all over for pulling out of a fight because they're stupid and don't think long-term about having to promote people after they do something that they don't like in the short term. Morons. So this coming Saturday, I will have live coverage of UFC 215 in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com. Please feel free to stop by, leave a comment if you feel so inclined. Always happy to, check in with you guys when I get a chance when I'm doing that. Thanks to everyone who followed along with my Mayweather-McGregor coverage. That was, much as I hated that fight, the issues I had with my pay-per-view provider just compounded everything. I don't think I actually watched the first 3 rounds. It was awful. So thanks to everyone who kind of put up with that. And yeah, Mark and I will be back next week to talk about his fear of clowns.
All right, everybody. For Robert Winfree, who hosts this thing, I am your mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified. This has been Damn You Hollywood's look at the Inhumans in IMAX episodes 1 and 2. We'll be back next week, as he said.
Save yourself.
Be well. Speaking of money, be well, be safe, and behave.